What if I tell you you've been brainwashed by stupid mainstream media to believe that stress is bad? Reading this book and practicing its principles for the past 1 year, I've realized that stress actually makes you smarter, stronger, happier, and even live longer. And the worst part is, you will actually experience all the negative effects of stress until you change your mindset towards it. So, in this video, I'll share why and how stress is good for you, along with scientific tools to master stress. But if stress is so good, where does it get its bad reputation from? There are two aspects to it, and the first one is how stress is defined. Most of the research about the harmful effects of stress are done in laboratories and not on human but on rats. And a typical stressful situation for a poor lab rat includes things like uncontrollable electric shocks, thrown in a bucket of water and forced to swim until they start to drown, being put in solitary confinement, being put in overcrowded cages with little food to fight over. Now, for a second, I want you to compare this to the day-to-day stress that you experience. Maybe you're anxious for an exam or before a speech. The stress lab rats go through looks more like traumatic events than regular day-to-day hassles. So a more fitting headline to articles like stress kills you would be torture tortured and shocked uncontrollably will kill you. The second aspect of the bad reputation of stress is our beliefs about it. There's this extremely fascinating study headlined Believe Yourself Healthy, in which housekeepers in hotels were divided into two groups. Housekeeping is a job that requires a lot of effort and burns around 300 calories an hour. The housekeeper never saw their work as exercise, and when they were asked whether they're getting any exercise, most of them thought they aren't meeting the basic needs for exercise or they aren't even getting any. The first group were given a 15 minutes presentation and were told how their work, things like cleaning the toilet, changing bed sheets, mopping the floor, is basically exercise and expends a lot of calories. The second group was a control group and were told about the benefits of exercise. After a month, the housekeepers in the first group had lost weight, had lost body fat, had lower blood pressures, and even liked their job more. So, the conclusion researchers derived from this study was if an activity leads to two outcomes, the effect that you focus on is the effect that you get. So, the housekeepers who saw their works as straining were burned out and tired, and the housekeepers who saw their work as exercise lost weight and were happier. So, coming back to the topic of this video, does this also apply to something as harmful and deadly as stress? I want you to think of a time in your life where you experienced immense growth. It could be personal growth, career growth, really any type of growth. Now that you have this period in your mind, let me ask you this. Would you also consider this period as stressful? Among the other three things, this is one of the things that was the most difficult for me to wrap my head around. At least initially, now I'm more than convinced. It was that stress makes our lives more meaningful. The countries that reported the least amount of stress had the most corruption, violence, and poverty, versus the countries that had high stress also reported high scores on happiness and satisfaction index. If you think about any time in your life when you were stressing out about something, you can almost certainly find something that was meaningful to you in that situation, whether it was an important test or an important meeting. Stress and meaning go hand in hand. Imagine this. You're giving a speech in front of 100 people, and before the speech, your heart is pounding, you're shaking, and your hands are sweating. What do you think is the best thing to do? Try and calm yourself down versus try and get more excited. According to Harvard Business School, 91% of people think it's best to calm yourself down. But the second thing about stress that surprised me the most was that it can boost your performance. That is, if you have the correct mindset. So, when people interpreted these signs as not them getting nervous and signs of them getting excited and ready for action, they were reported as more confident and persuasive during the speech. Not just that, but this even worked for something as extreme as social anxiety disorder. Have you ever wished that you had less stress or had experienced less trauma in your past? Well, it turns out the people who have experienced less trauma in their childhood are not that happy after all. It would make sense that people who have experienced the least stress would be the most happy, and the people who have experienced the most stress or trauma would be the least happy. But the graph comparing the two turns out to be a bell graph. The people with least and greatest numbers of adversities were least satisfied with their life and had most health issues, versus the people in the middle, having faced some but not a lot of trauma, were the happiest and the healthiest. I mean, we all know people who are super pampered as a child and now struggle to function as an adult. And the last thing about trauma that surprised me the most was that how stressful, traumatic, and difficult experiences can help you grow and come out stronger. Even though we might not see stress in this light, but the biological purpose of stress is to prepare our brains to learn and grow from a difficult situation. So if we walk down a dark alley and we feel super unsafe doing that, we will experience stress. So the next time we may avoid it altogether or be more prepared while doing that. But again, it's how we perceive and react to when these stressful situations are happening, which governs and decides how much strength and wisdom we gain from them. I'm hoping by this point you're convinced that stress is good for you if you have the right mindset towards it. So in the next section, I've put together 3 exercises from the book that helps you experience happiness, strength, and live a long life because and not despite stress. Starting wide, if you think your life is extremely stressful and burns you out, this 10-minute exercise done once has proven to show benefits for months and even years. I want you to pick your top 3 values. And if you haven't given a thought about your values until now, don't worry, I got your back. Use this list to pick 3 things that you value the most. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. And once you've chosen your top 3 values, pick any one and write about it using pen and paper for 10 minutes straight. You can include things like why is this important to you? How do you express it in daily life? And how could it guide you in difficult times? You can do the same steps with the other 2 values at a later time as well. What this simple exercise does is it changes your perspective towards daily or regular stress that you experience from something that hinders you to something that is an expression of your values. And hence, it also changes the way you cope with them. Now, if you've gone through a particularly stressful experience or even traumatic experience, or perhaps if you're going through it right now, this exercise will help you find strength and power during these times. It's called benefit finding. So pick an ongoing difficult situation or a recent one. Write down what benefits have you experienced from this experience. I challenge you to write at least 3. You can include things like spiritual growth, increased appreciation of life, newfound abilities and strength, enhanced relationships, identifying new possibilities, and life directions. This might look like as plain positive thinking, but benefit finding is much more than that. It gives you the opportunity to look for the positive or a new different perspective in the worst of scenarios, which helps you grow from them and even again cope with them better. The final and my personal favorite one is something that you can do on the spot when you're experiencing stress or anxiety. This can include instances like going for a meeting, appearing for an exam, or even a date. I want you to understand that stress before an important, meaningful, or even any significant event in your life is your body's way of preparing yourself. So the heart beating faster is more blood in your muscles. Deep breaths and increased breathing rate is more oxygen. Tenseness in your muscles and shivering is your body's way of warming up and getting ready. And the knot you feel in the gut is your body's way of saying that this is meaningful to you. Even just seeing this stress as not something that inhibits you and something that assists you in these scenarios can literally change your biology. So the next time you experience these signs of anxiety before a daunting task, remind yourself the heart pounding and deep breaths is your body's way to give you more energy. Tension and shivering is your body warming up for action, and knots in the stomach is a sign that you're doing something that has meaning and value to you. Worry less about making this anxiety go away and focus more on what you'll do with the strength it provides. You can also literally tell yourself, as cheesy as it sounds, I'm getting excited instead of saying I'm getting nervous. In all frankness, I am still getting a hang of this one, but I can genuinely attest that this works beautifully. Along with stress, one of the major problems I've noticed a lot of people experience is inability to feel emotion. I talk about emotional numbness and how to overcome that in this video. So if you want to increase your emotional intelligence, you can click here.